Welcome to Issues. It's always interesting to hear Elvis discuss and analyze his music and to talk about, the influences and how he thought about it and approached it. And there are some gems you can find in interviews and press conferences he did. I wanted to play an excerpt from the 1970 press conference he gave prior to playing at the Houston Astrodome, in which he made some comments about, characterizing his music. I'm just going to play a brief clip, and then we can discuss it. And again, this is him analyzing his music.
Do you have any thoughts about the rising interest in country music?
I think it's fantastic. You see, country music was always a part of the influence on my type of music anyway. It's a combination of country music and gospel and rhythm and blues all combined is what it really was. As a child, I was influenced by all of that.
Do you consider yourself basically a country music singer then?
I would hate to say strictly country because of the fact that I liked all different types of music when I was a child. Of course, the Grand Ole Opry was the first thing I ever heard, probably. But I liked blues and I liked the gospel music, gospel quartets and all that.
Did you ever pull out any of those old records from the Sun label and listen to them at all?
They sound funny, boy. They got a lot of echo on them, man, I'll tell you. But that's what I mean. I think the overall sound has improved today,
Well, do you think there's more gimmicks today than there was, say, 15 years ago?
There's probably more gimmicks, but I think that the engineers have improved, and I think that the techniques have improved.
So I had a few comments about this. First thing is that he mentions, right, that his music was a combination of country, rhythm and blues, and gospel. When he says country, I think he might characterize it really as country western, right? Because that's really what he was listening to, was country western at the time. Also with the rhythm and blues, if he talks about how his music was a synthesis of those three areas, right? The country western, rhythm and blues, and gospel. With the rhythm and blues, the song structures are similar between country and rhythm and blues. What you see with the country is they're sort of removing the syncopation, which I've talked about in another video. But they're removing, country is like a similar song structure to rhythm and blues, but without the syncopation. The rhythm and blues, but has a heavier rhythm, right? So it's almost like he's really is synthesizing those two. Now, I don't see myself with his early music, right? How the Sun sessions and the early stuff, excuse me, with RCA integrated the gospel. So clearly, I mean, this man loved gospel, right? But I didn't really notice the gospel elements coming into his music until the late 60s and 70s, right? So he loved gospel. He recorded pure gospel albums, but I didn't see gospel elements integrated with the rock myself until the late 60s. Okay, that's one point. The other thing, regarding the gospel, he actually when he if you read Peter Grolnick's book, he documented all this and this and then I know his Elvis's dad Vernon told this story to the guys who did the documentary Elvis on Tour in '73. But they document how Elvis, when he was a teenager, he just graduated from high school or something. One night he was talking to his dad, like he was in bed, and his dad came in to say goodnight or something, and he said, "Daddy, I think I might want to be an entertainer." So his dad said, "Well, why don't you talk to some people who know about that field and how to get into it?" And the first serious attempts Elvis made to get into the music business, he tried to join gospel quartets, male gospel quartets. He loved gospel quartets, and that was his initial musical ambition. It was to to be in a gospel quartet, and he auditioned for a bunch of them, and they told him he wasn't good enough. I guess they rejected him, right? And then and I forget all the minute details, but from what I remember from Gralnick's book is he started, like going to Sun Studios. He used to play his guitar like, everywhere, right? He always had his guitar with him, but he would go to Sun Studios often and he'd say, "Do you know of any groups that need a singer?" And then he had recorded his own song for his mother. And at Sun, he paid to record a record for his mother. And the secretary there, she said that she got chills when she heard the recording. Like she knew, so she remembered him. And then one time, and he kept coming in. So one time, Sam Phillips, the guy that ran Sun, wanted to experiment with trying to get a white group to play black music, the rhythm and blues, basically. And she said, "Well, why don't we call that boy?" So they called him in, and they were recording stuff, the rhythm and blues stuff. And Sam, I guess, didn't really like what he was hearing, and they took a break, and Elvis just started jamming, and the other guys jumped in. It was "That's All Right, Mama," and he did this version just for fun of "That's All Right, Mama," right? That was really like the synthesis of rhythm and blues and country. He took away the heavy syncopation. You know, he he uh, he sang the lyrics legato, right? And it was a totally different interpretation of the song, but it was hot. And Sam started recording them, right? So my point here is that it's almost like it was accidental. I mean, this guy wanted to go into gospel, and it was almost like he discovered this rock and roll. It was discovered accidentally when they were just fooling around. When they were doing the serious takes, Sam didn't like what he was hearing, and then when they were relaxing, the magic happened. But I just want to tie together this point that when Elvis said in this press conference, his music, right, his rock, and he's referring to the early Sun sessions and then RCA, right? Um, that music, his music, he said it was a synthesis of those three things. Well, in my opinion, the early music, he loved gospel, but I just don't see the gospel in those Sun records, right? I think it's really literally a synthesis of country and western and rhythm and blues. But here's the point. It just happened spontaneously. This stuff, he really had internalized all this stuff and it mixed together within him and just came out synthesized. That was the creative act, right? It wasn't thought through, it wasn't intellectualized initially, I don't think, at all. It just came out spontaneously. Um, but it's amazing to think that it was accidental in a way and it started this mind-blowing revolution here in the US and around the world. It's just incredible. If you have any comments or reactions to what I said, I'd really like to hear them. Thanks.